Well, hello, everyone. I hope you've had a great, insightful day, day one of the Action for Impact Summit. And I hope you've enjoyed having the WBC host us and bring us together for a time of learning and connection, especially around how we can drive a better future of work for everyone. I'm Laine Gandy, a director at the Adecco Group US Foundation, focused on workplace inclusion and well being. And this year, I've had the honor of co leading the WBC's staffing industry workstream with Samantha Whitney. And I'd like to thank our entire staffing workstream for your leadership and commitment to continuing to help our industry and those working in it to grow and thrive. Excuse me. But the past few years have been unprecedented for both the staffing industry and the jobs market in general. I think we can all feel that, right? There's been COVID, post COVID, changes in administration. So, with that in mind, this conversation that's really focused around what employers and workers need to be thinking about for the future of work. Megan, I'm going to ask you the first question. Can you give us some of your insights on what you're seeing in the overall talent acquisition space and highlight some of the biggest changes that you think employers are looking at that will impact the near future?
Sure. Thank you so much, Laine. It's great to be here. And it's been, you mentioned it, it's been a really volatile couple of years for employees, for employers, leading through a global pandemic, leading through a presidential election, leading through geopolitical uncertainty. And what that has meant, what we've been observing, really breaks down to four specific areas. So, one is we've had a shift from an employee market to an employer market. And during the pandemic, leading into the pandemic, it was a really, really hot jobs market and very competitive offers, deals that were being shared with candidates, extreme incentives to get people to sign on the dotted line and come on board. And it was really the employee that was calling a lot of the shots in terms of his or her next move professionally. Now we're seeing a real shift. It is now back to being an employer market, really calling the shots on should people be in the office 5 days a week, what kind of incentives, what to do from a bonus perspective. So that's one. The second, which we can't have this conversation without working AI into it. And the way we're seeing AI in terms of talent acquisition is in two ways. So, one is how do we use AI for hiring? Where can it be useful and valuable, whether it's finding candidates, vetting candidates, using it within HR? And then there's also a lot of uncertainty about what AI is going to do to specific jobs and skills and what companies are going to be looking for from talent, especially in that post college career path, sort of those first 5, 6 years post college, where there's a lot of writing. AI is really starting to shift expectations for that time in someone's career. The third is economic and geopolitical uncertainty, and that continues to generate some hesitancy to continue on a hiring path that employers may have been focused on. Just uncertainty can really give people pause. And then the last, which we just haven't really had, from my perspective, a reckoning on, is the return to office and what makes sense for different employers and for people, for employees. But there's also a profound moment that I think is worthy of exploring, which is what it has meant for our employee populations and not having to come into the office every day, how that's impacted people's lives, not just their time that they give to work, but their time they give to other people in their lives. So those are the four areas that we're really, really focused on.
It's so true. We are in an employer first market. The competition for talent, though, is still very real because it
Yeah.
doesn't get any easier to find the top talent when you're getting 5 times as many resumes as you were when it was more a talent market, right? So it's still not about who can offer the highest salary. And the companies that are winning right now are the ones that have really figured out and embraced that culture is their product, right? They're not just selling a job, they're selling a future, a community, and even a purpose. There's data from a recent Gallup survey that shows that the theme of engagement and culture is still the most prominent reason. It's like 37% of people leave their jobs, which it means it's outweighing things like pay and benefits. So, with that in mind, there are just a few things that employers need to be paying close attention to. I'll say one big one is empowering the rising stars. Laine, you know how passionate I am about this.
Yes,
We
I
have so many talented young people and women who have the technical skills, but maybe they lack the emotional EQ or the confidence to really step into a leadership role. This isn't a problem. It's not a problem. It's an opportunity, right? We can't afford to lose their brilliance. So we have to be intentional about creating an environment where we give them the tools and we give them the room to build their EQ, to find their voice, and to step into those leadership roles. And that really means for companies moving beyond mentorship to sponsorship. When we're actively advocating for them and giving them meaningful, high visibility projects, we let go of control. And again, this is a soapbox I'm happy to stand on every day of the week. We let go of control and we give them the space to step into their power and lead. And so I think that we really want to double down on that move from mentorship to sponsorship. And then let's be real. The second thing is about reskilling for the future of work. And Megan, you touched on this and you mentioned AI, which obviously is not just a buzzword. It's already changing the way we work. So instead of just offering generic, just in case trainings, companies really need to focus on just in time reskilling. And it's about being proactive and constantly asking, what skills will our team need to succeed in the next 18 months? That's not a question folks are asking right now. And this isn't one that's just about productivity. It's a powerful way to just show your team that you're invested in their long-term career goal, their long-term career growth, excuse me, and achieving their goals, which in turn helps you improve retention and close those widening skill gaps that we're all seeing. There was a 2022 McKinsey study that showed that a lack of career development and advancement was the most common reason for quitting a job. So folks are looking and searching for those opportunities, and those rising stars and their brilliance is an asset to your company, an asset to your success. So find ways to hone in on the opportunities to reskill them.
I think that's a really well said, Kendra. And, what I'm really hearing you say is it can be easy to want to back off on learning and development in times of uncertainty, especially economic uncertainty.
Sure.
But we actually really need to be leaning into that in quite a few areas. Um, Megan, Molly, anything on Kendra's, you know, thoughts that you want to add on to?
Kendra, I was saying yes, yes, yes when you were talking about the culture piece. I think, I, I'll share a little bit more about how we're thinking about policies that companies can implement. But gosh, if you roll out a policy around flexibility, but you actually don't have a culture that supports that, and it makes me feel
Mm-hmm.
like I can take you up on the opportunity to go and pick my kid up from school and come back because you trust me. If there's not a culture that supports it, that policy actually doesn't matter. And I
Sure.
think that oftentimes business leaders take the message that, oh, these policies didn't work, when actually it's the culture, that their culture didn't embrace and support their rising stars to take advantage of those great policies. So I just wanted to plus what you're saying. It's such an important piece as we're thinking about building these robust um, workplaces that
Right.
really allow people to succeed and attract the best
Mm.
talent around.
Very
And that
true.
puts leaders exactly in the position to be accountable for their culture because they have the opportunity to incentivize or punish those types of behaviors, especially for those who are implementing kind of return to work, right? We really do have a chance to reshape culture if you are doing return to work. Molly, that what you touched on though really I want brought me back to my question that I had for you. And moms first, you guys really got going during the pandemic, right? With Reshma writing a letter and the Marshall Plan for moms. And workplace flexibility became a much more commonplace practice during COVID, really out of necessity. But with the conversation evolving, caretaking's not going away.
As Laine was sharing, just brief context, Moms First is a national nonprofit that is fighting for America's moms and policies like affordable childcare and paid leave. And in service of that goal, we work closely with employers to achieve what we see as a real win-win. Investments in workplace well-being policies like childcare benefits that also increase company profitability. And so I think if COVID when showed us anything, it really showed us what's at stake, that without childcare, there is no workforce. 50% of our workforce, or nearly 50%, are women, and women need childcare to work. So today, as we're seeing these return to office mandates, coupled with rising childcare costs, we're seeing too many moms who are being forced out. And it's not because they don't want to work, it's because the system is making it impossible. So, this combination of return to office mandates with soaring childcare costs are beginning to actually kind of roll back the gains that we've seen since the depths of COVID. Just this past month, the Washington Post reported that over 200,000 women have left the workforce since January, which is the biggest drop among moms of young kids since the pandemic. So I think we learned a lesson in COVID, and it seems like we are needing some reminders about that lesson at this juncture. So if I think about for employers, this is no longer about being family friendly. It is truly about winning the competition for talent, even in an employer marketplace. And we know this at Moms First because we've worked hard to make the business case crystal clear. We worked with the Boston Consulting Group and found that companies who invest in childcare benefits see positive returns ranging from 90% up to 425%. An ROI like that, to not utilize that, that is practically, fiscal malfeasance. So I think about that. For every dollar spent on childcare support, companies are getting back between $1.90 and $5.25. It's a good deal. So as I think about kind of the top opportunities in this moment, as we're seeing some of these shifting sands, I think there's three. The first I'd say is invest in childcare. The second thing is to offer paid leave. And that is so employees can care for their families without penalty. You will retain for a brief moment, when someone needs to exit the workforce for a period, you'll be able to retain that talent. And then the third thing I think employers can really focus on is to create true flexibility. And this is the number one thing that moms tell us that they need to stay at their jobs. Um, Employees with schedule flexibility report 20% less stress. They're 62% more satisfied at work. I love these stats. And a recent study, a GAO study, found that these 5-day office mandates are just outdated. Jobs with a telework option saw a 12% bump in performance. And so, what I'd love to encourage employers to think about is, gosh, we've gone through this massive pandemic, this massive turmoil that has really forced us to be innovative and try new ways of working. Why go back to the same way we've always done it? Why not take the best parts of what worked, carry those forward, and then adapt? And so I think as we think about these types of investments, they're not just perks, they're the foundation of a strong modern workforce. And the companies that really embrace these and think about how to build into something of the future are going to be the companies that not only have the best talent, but they're going to be the companies that win when it comes to their bottom line. So I think it's not just about women. The last thing I'll leave you with is 70% of the workforce today has some type of caregiving responsibility. So it's not just childcare, it's elder care. You may be in the sandwich generation.
Mm-hmm.
And those numbers are only going to increase going forward. So let's think about and invest now to really get ahead.
Oh, Molly, I'm so glad you mentioned the sandwich generation. In preparing for our panel, I came across this term and feel it in my soul personally, and think about how many colleagues and friends of mine are in the same situation. And the AARP recently shared a number that the number of family caregivers has jumped to 63 million Americans. And that is an actual 45% increase in the last decade alone. So this is a huge jump. Not only are we in a unique situation as a sandwich generation, it's a huge jump that folks haven't experienced before. Our country hasn't experienced. And so we really want people to remember, right, that this is even bigger. The conversation's getting even bigger, and there's so many men and women out there who need to be seen as a real opportunity and need that flexibility.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. And I appreciate you mentioning the men too. You know, moms first, we talk about moms, right? But we think that if we deliver the things that moms need, everyone's going to
Everyone
benefit.
wins.
Because you know what?
Right.
We're seeing real jumps in men taking up caregiving
Yeah.
responsibilities, and that's wonderful and that's important. And we have to support that and create space for that
Yeah.
too, and create models so that men can actually lean into that, and that they don't have to quietly leave work to go take care of their mom who might be headed to hospice. It's the same
Sure.
double standards we don't want to create. So
Sure. Yeah.
thanks for flagging that, Kendra. The other half of the population need them as well.
Well, thank you all for your insights today. And I know we're right up on time. So it goes quick, doesn't it? So to end us here on a positive note, I'm going to ask each of you, and I'm going to go in the order that I asked your initial questions. So Megan, Kendra, and then Molly. What is one thing that you want to leave our audience with to create a brighter future of work for everyone?
Oh, I love this question, and thank you for today. I really encourage people to bring creativity into the workplace and be really open to bringing new ideas of ways to work, to share information, and make sure that that's part of what we bring to not just outside of work, but into the office. So that creativity, and then the other one is just be really self-aware of what you're listening to and what you're reading, and be really thoughtful about how much social media is taking over your thought space, and be protective of who you're giving your brain and your energy to.
Yeah. Wise words, Megan, indeed. I think this conversation has been powerful because it's highlighted that the future of work isn't just about the company, it's about the people. It's about building a system where people don't just survive, they get an opportunity to thrive. And the one thing I would want to leave you with today is that the old way of doing business was about profit over people. And the new way, the resilient, future ready way, is about understanding that when you invest in your people and their families, you are investing in your bottom line. So I just want us to go be those leaders and go be those companies where we create the cultures of trust and belonging and flexibility, because that's how we're going to build a brighter future of work for everyone.
Invest for
Great.
the best. Love it.
Yeah. Great. And I'll just close this out by saying, you know, if you want to win the war for talent, you need to start by asking, does my workplace work for parents and caregivers? And if the answer is no, you're already losing. But the good news is all you have to do to solve this, it's not rocket science. You need to ask your employees about their needs. What are they struggling with? Because we know the solutions, right? So ask them, and then you can design the solutions that really fit your employees' needs. And if you do that, you will win as a company. You will build the workplace of the future. And I hope that that in of itself is inspiring to leaders as well.
I want to thank each of you guys for being with us today. Thank you to the WBC, and we are signing off. So we'll see you soon.